political editors? Which is more fun?
The first, I think, was probably more fun, but I think from the voter's point of view, the second is more effective, because the morning press conferences, whatever you say about them, leave the politicians cross-examined, as they never are in between the 5-year, 4-year elections, cross-examined by people who know a bit about politics, the whole mass of political correspondence in the newspapers and the networks. We are now in this rather remarkable situation, 4 Tory victories on the run. It's going to be, what, nearly 20 years by the time of the next election, 18 years. Where do you think this leaves British politics? Well, I think it's a bit of a concern, what Senator Fulbright in the United States used to call the arrogance of power. In other words, I think what Mr. Major has to be careful about is that the whole civil service, the whole of the health service establishment and the schools and so on, don't become a kind of a conservative domain, because I don't think he is one of those who thinks in political terms of everybody having to be one of us. I saw in Northern Ireland the Unionist Party in power for a long time. People say all sorts of silly things about the Unionist Party. One of the principal difficulties was it was in power too long, and everybody assumed it would be in power forever. People adjusted accordingly to that. And then there's a problem, I mean, people talking about, oh, it'll be like Japan, where elections seem more like religious observances than real elections because the opposition can never do it. Yes, I think that's too glib. I mean, Labour's position looks very difficult this weekend, but I do think that some foolish things are being written about it. It has, after all, come an awfully long way since the disaster of 1983. The real problem is the relationship between Labour and the Liberal Democrats in this whole matter of electoral change. I mean, I do think that what's being written this weekend is far too simplistic on that. What you're talking about is all the stuff that there is about the possibility of realignment of the left, pacts with the Liberals. Do you think that's not a serious option? Well, Jonathan, it's all based on a bit of wishful fulfillment on the left or centre-left of British politics, that there is a conservative and an anti-conservative thing in this country. Surely if we learned anything from Paddy Ashdown's own behaviour, he kept equidistant between the two parties because he knew he had to. And even with that, at the end, when it appeared, when the Conservatives were able to say he'll bring in a Labour government, some of his voters appear to have slipped back to the Conservatives. Now that's something that any Liberal Democrat leader has to consider, and so incidentally does any Labour Party. I think the Labour Party has to rethink its policy a bit, and I think it has to fight for what it believes in. If it is an egalitarian party, well then it must argue for that over a longer period. Very interesting. Now, I said that this was your last in your present incumbency as the BBC's political editor. Do I take it you're going to do a Sir Robin Day, and the next one you're going to be on the other side? Well, Jonathan, as many politicians, that's a very mischievous thought, as many politicians have learned this weekend, sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. Beautifully put, John. Thanks a lot. And that's all for this afternoon. Later this evening, though, David Walter presents an On the Record special. It's a behind-the-scenes, blow-by-blow story of the trials and tribulations of a Tory election campaign that defied the faint hearts, confounded the pundits, and delivered another term of office to the Conservative Party. That's tonight, 11:25 on BBC1. That aside, On the Record, I'm glad to say, has a break for a fortnight. We'll be back, though, at our usual time, 1 o'clock, in our usual place, BBC1, on Sunday, the 3rd of May. Till then, from all of us, goodbye.
It's never too late for love.
We first met through a mutual friend. I think she thought we were both feeling rather lonely.
So would you like to come in?
Step in, I said, certainly.
You've got a nice room here, he said.
My word, it's clean and tidy, I said.
So he said, I want to know, will you marry me?
Kind of caught her bump, and she didn't say yes or no.
Oh, we're just so happy together.
Not at their age. 40 minutes, Tuesday, 9:50 on 2.
On BBC1 shortly, there's a chance to catch up on the week's events around Albert Square. This is BBC2, where we settle down to our afternoon film, a French comedy about a novice schoolteacher having to deal with more than a few problems on the first day at school, Le Maitre D'Ecole.
dans le fond, là. Déjà, je me fais chier avec un mec qui veut du 37. Je vais y en inventer du 34, moi. Baisse, baisse. Qu'est-ce qu'il y a? Bon, bah, vous voulez rien, bah, dites-le. Bon, alors, on l'essaye au jeune homme? Tiens, enlève ta chdavette, là, vite fait, regarde. C'est très bien, ça te va forcément, il n'y a qu'une farine. Tiens, regarde. Alors là, t'es dans le coup avec ça, tu vois. Voilà, il n'y a même pas de touche. Vous croyez? Impeccable. Et vous me donnez une chemise pour le même prix? Non, c'est 200 francs l'achat. Alors, tout à l'heure, une casquette à la pièce. Bonjour, là, 30 francs. Regarde, jaune, c'est super. Voilà. T'as l'air d'un vrai chasseur, c'est les canards qui vont être contents. Allez, tu payes à la caisse, t'as la chemise gratuite. Au revoir. Tiens, t'oublies pas ta veste parce qu'on a du mal à les vendre. Ah oui, merci. Ça fait plaisir. Alors, ça y est? Ah bah c'est changé là.
Ouais, finalement, je vais prendre la noire.
Oui? Elle est très bien, t'es content? C'est bien. Bon, allez.
Non mais dis donc, ça va pas, non? Allez! Allez, relève-moi ces bottes! Allez! T'y cours!
Eh ben, qu'est-ce que t'as? T'es gelé, toi?
Mais il a volé des bottes!
Et alors? C'est pas une raison pour cogner dessus, ça?
Mais c'est pas toi qui les paye, les bottes, c'est moi!
Eh ben, tu vas pas nous chier une pendule avec tes bottes!
T'es pas content?
Non.
Bah tu passes à la caisse, t'es viré!
Eh ben, tiens, toi, t'es vendeur, alors. Tu vends un pantalon à la fille. Donne-moi ma veste, je me casse. Je te verrai ce soir. Viens, le gosse.
Les bottes!
Eh ben, tu les prendras sur mon compte. Banane.
Connard!
Monsieur, connard. Eh ben, bois pas si vite, on va pas te le prendre. Tu veux une paille?
Non, ça va.
Ça va? Comment ça se fait que t'es pas à l'école? Y a pas d'école aujourd'hui? Regarde-moi. T'as séché?